So I got this 59 Bolens here. Got everything fully functional on it. Not going to do a restoration on it. But there's one big ugly thing back here going on. Somebody put a homemade guard on there. So we're going to try to do something about that. Now this is a tiller off of a 1961 model. They appear to be the same. So hopefully I can duplicate this cover here. And we're going to try to make one to fit over here. Well, there's some extra holes in here. But there is the 4 original holes that line up with this other piece. So that matches pretty well. This one's been bent down. There should be a flat area right here. So I have to bend this back up. See, it's separated right here. Now, one difference I do see is this 61 model has this angle piece across here, and it also has the angle piece across the bottom of this one, but this one does not have the angle piece on it. So I will probably make this just like this, except without the angle part, because that was probably an addition made in a later year to strengthen that. Well, we're looking at the PlasmaCam program. This runs the PlasmaCam machine, which is a computer-controlled plasma cutter on a 4-foot square table. This large square represents the cutting table. The smaller rectangle here represents a piece of metal that I have to work with. The green line represents the part we're going to cut out. Alright, we're going to cut the holes first. Then it's going to cut the outside profile. Got the exhaust fan running is what you hear. is what we got so far. So I need to bend the curve into this piece. This notch right here is where I need to fold this edge over. This notch will allow that front edge to fold over. So right across here is where it's going to bend down to create this front section here. That looks pretty close. Looks like the holes should line up. So this section right here is probably going to be the roughest part of this project. To make that bend over on a curve like that. If this was a little bit thinner material, you could use your shrinker on that. In my case, I think I'm going to have to build a jig to clamp that in so that I can hammer the edge over. I'm going to show you how I make that. So I need to acquire this curve so that I can make a piece that has that curve in it. So I literally traced around this piece right here because this is in pretty good shape. I made sure this was about the right size that I wanted. So I'm going to take a picture of this where I traced it, and that's going to give me what this shape is. And I'll make a fixture out of that to bend this into the shape I want. So we're looking at some pictures on the computer now. This is a photograph of the line that I traced. I got a ruler laid next to it so that I can establish the size properly. Now I take that image and convert it to a bitmap. As you can see, the lines have changed colors here because there's only 16 colors available once you convert it to a 16 color bitmap. So at that point I can select which colors I want to use as a background and isolate those lines. So this is the image created once you've isolated those lines by selecting which colors you want to represent the black versus the white. Now we're looking at the PlasmaCam program. Here you can see the line which represents the curve that I got from the photograph. I've found where the center of that curve is and squared it up and made it the proper size. So this represents a couple of 2-inch wide plates that's going to be a 1/4 inch thick, and those holes are where I'm going to put some 1-inch square tubing through to hold these plates together in position. So I'm going to make a few of these parts so that you can see what I'm trying to do here. So this piece needs to match the curve on the inside there, and that's fairly close. This angle's in the way and won't let it get in position. This piece will let me clamp onto the outside and form that curve. So the intent not really is to bend this piece, but to give me a backup to build this flange. Alright, I got my pieces cut. Got some scrap square steel tubing there I'm going to try to make this with. I'm going to use this machinist vise to hold things square while I weld it. looking at the frames that I made that I plan on clamping this piece in. Primary purpose for that is to be able to clamp this in that shape while I hammer this edge over. So I'm going to put a radius across here to match the radius I'm trying to get inside there. Have this piece, the top piece, a little bit narrower to give me some flexibility as far as how much of that lip sticks out when I clamp it. So next operation is I need to bend this section here so that I can reference my part off of this edge. So here's the new part. I'm going to bend this piece here so it can reference off of this edge so I can clamp it together. So this metal is thicker than what I normally work with. Can't bend it in my little brake. So we're going to try this in the press. Got a piece of angle iron with some square stock. So this is equal distance from the top down to the center of the groove. And there's my top tool. And I'm going to press that in there to bend it. So we'll do that on the hydraulic press. Here we are at the press. I got everything positioned in there. Couple things to keep in mind. You have to manually align these top and bottom tools so they come together properly. And since this press has some holes in the edges, I can look through here and eyeball from each side to keep all these pieces aligned. I can see the line that I'm going by a little bit on this side, and I can see a little bit if I look from the other side. Another thing to consider is this bottom. These are not hardened tools, so I did put a little bit of oil on the bottom die just to help my part slide. Okay, let's see what happens. I'm not going to go to a complete 90 degree. This part doesn't look like it's 90 degrees. It's close. I'm going a little bit more. Okay, we'll try that. I'm going to go just a touch more, I think. I'm going to try that. Alright, I got my bend in this piece here. Next I'm going to try to get this general curve into there. And just like the brake problem, I don't have a roller or anything to work this thickness of metal. Alright, I found something that's round and a little bit smaller diameter. Let's try that instead. Alright, next thing I want to do is prep this piece to be the underside of this shape when I'm hammering on it. So you can see that's not a square corner in there, but how big is it? This looks like a pretty decent curve out there, so we're going to try to duplicate that. So machine shop guys will recognize this is a radius gauge set. Comes with each piece has a different size radius cut on it for you, so you can hold these in that curve right there to measure what size the radius that is. So a 1/8 inch fits in there pretty nicely. Here's a 9/64 radius, and you can see some daylight underneath the tip of that. So this radius is pretty close to right in between these two, just slightly under an 1/8 inch. So what I need to do is put an 1/8 inch radius on this edge right here, and I'll be using these gauges to help me get that the right size. Now I'm going to be hammering over onto this edge, so I'm going to grind some of the welds down flush. Alright, I'm getting ready to clamp this piece of metal in between these two, so what I need to do is smooth up these surfaces here so it doesn't scratch the metal. So that's got some 120 grit. Just going to smooth these up by hand now. This is the edge I'm going to be hammering over on, so that's really the one that's going to establish the shape of the inside of that curve. Now this is what it looks like. It's got it clamped in there. It's going to hold that shape. So I plan on hammering this edge over. So I need this supported so that I can hammer on this part. So I'm going to put some legs on there. I'm going to put legs coming down this way so I can hold it in the vise. And that'll support that whole thing so I can work on it. Alright, I'm going to put some legs onto this thing. It's going to be similar to that. So I can hold it in the vise and I'll be able to hammer on this. Put that in the right shape. So I want my legs to be spaced apart that distance. So that'll establish my spacing. So now I need to weld that on there. Alright, there it is. So with this fixture, I should be able to hammer this lip over and get it to be the right shape that I want. I gotta go a little at a time. We'll see if it works. Alright, that looks pretty decent there. I got it down against the surface. It's got the radius on the outside. So a little bit of filing and some sanding, and that'll get the hammer marks off of the outside of the metal. And we should have about the right shape. Too bad I didn't incorporate this angle into this fixture. I could have went ahead and did this little section here with the same setup. Maybe next time. So I'll have to get some sort of block. Maybe I can use this piece behind here to hammer that edge over. Alright, I got this turned around so I can use the radius on this piece on the inside of this small lip. Got a smaller hammer. I'm going to work on this a bit. That looks pretty good, eh? We'll have to see if it's the right size. Alright, there's that part. Looks pretty good so far. It's about the same angle. Looks like my lip's just a hair longer. Size looks pretty good. Doesn't really fit inside or outside of this because I've got a tube here and this angle piece on there. Alright. So next I'm going to work on this piece. I'll make all of the tubes at the same time, so I'll do that later. And on this one I'm not going to put this angle piece on there because it looks like that was an addition for the 61 model. At least it's not on this 59 model that I have here, so. Alright.